Got it. Thanks.
I am so done with these people, and there are 1,600 more days to go.
For some reason the master keeps cutting out. I have no idea. That one was weird. I assume everyone can hear us now. I'm gonna check on the live chat. It looks like it's up.
There's the volume.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Yeah, it's the producer's fault. Let's see. Well, there's probably no way to play it with that well. Yeah, are we live? That's a good question. Oh, thank you. Well, welcome to Downtime, such as it is. Commander, how are you?
Surviving.
How's
one of those days where nothing particularly gone wrong, but I'm still feeling crappy about the day.
I think there's a lot more of that in general in the winter. I could be wrong. But I know what you mean. Been feeling a lot of that myself. So I want to get. All right, here's the deal. We've been trying to keep Trump out of the downtimes, and I think going forward we'll still be able to do that. But we have to do more shows on him. We haven't done one in a while, and a lot of shit has gone down.
And in his case, a single 24-hour period is a long while that you haven't had to talk about it.
Yeah, we may have to do like every 24 hours, just like 10 a.m. in the morning, just be like, or at night, just like, okay, here's your rundown of the crazy shit that's gone on in the last 24 hours, because it's been that way. And the problem is it's branching out, and it's as he's installing political appointees at various agencies, they're out doing crazy shit too, some of which we're going to talk about, and they're implementing his plans. So we're going to talk about the Department of Transportation in a second. It's crazy. One good piece of news, 𝐍𝐢𝐜𝐚𝐬 Music put this out there for us, which was that they found all of the elements necessary for life on an asteroid. This is important because it means that there is a place that's got all the elements for life. If an asteroid's got it, it's likely going to be on a planet as well. And also actually lends credence to the panspermia theory, which is all of us are aliens. None of us, we all descend from life that actually came here from some other, a planet that had sort of its own primordial soup, gets hit with an asteroid. All the elements for life go out there. Some landed here and grew into the original prokaryotes, and all of life descended from that. So, anyways, it doesn't prove it, but it's interesting and certainly suggests that their life could could easily exist elsewhere. Arian Vaughn, 499. What up, Nick? Love you, bro. Horrible plane crash yesterday. Yeah, that was, and unfortunately there were no survivors. Looking into that, one suggestion right now is that the helicopter misidentified the plane. So the helicopter appears to have visually confirmed that they saw a plane, but they think they saw the wrong one. So while trying to avoid one plane, they ended up going into the flight path of the other. It's also known at this point that one controller was taking the station of two. He was doing landings on two different sides, and that really requires two controllers,
Let's
not one.
cut funding to the FAA. That's important.
Exactly. And Trump has said that the reason, so just FYI, that none of this is, we've learned from Donald Trump earlier today that none of this is what caused the crash. What caused the crash, I shit you not, is DEI programs and wokeness caused the crash. I'm not kidding. That's what he said.
No, the real cause is Rappin' Ron Reagan, who got rid of all of the FAA people
Well, and
and new folks, and hasn't been the same since. And they've always been keeping it on a real tight budget. So people are working double shifts. People are working without proper training, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Gotta love those cost-saving Republicans.
there was a movie that I really did not particularly like. I was about to say it's a terrible movie, but I don't want to offend people who may have liked it, called Pushing Tin, and it's about air traffic controllers. But one of the things is the pressure that they're under to all of them are running way too many flights, and they're all understaffed, and it's always on the verge of a catastrophe because everybody said you see that pretty well in that movie, and it portrays them as all, you know, a bunch of rogues who like the adrenaline. No, they're a bunch of government workers that aren't getting enough sleep, working double shifts, and can't barely function, and everybody's lives are in their hands. So, yeah.
My recollection is that traffic controllers are never supposed to be handling more than 12 planes at a time, but the average loading is above 18 to 20.
Well, then if this guy was working two stations, then he could have had as many as 48 planes. And it does. It looks like the chopper was warned of an airplane, whether it was the correct plane or not. We're going to find out. But my guess is it wasn't wokeness that crashed the plane, or DEI programs or anything like that. And you know, Trump's like, we're going to have the best federal aviation.
Yeah, right.
While cutting the budget for everything.
We're going to hire a bunch of beer-swilling Southerners who really know how to do all this because they were born with that talent. Going to get rid of all those woke people.
So, speaking of, I was never sure when to play this. Hopefully, we've got the sound back and everyone will be able to hear it. We'll see. So let's give this a shot here. This is, I think, from today, from the confirmation hearing for RFK for Health and Human Services. Let's take a listen.
You said the following, and I quote, "We should not be giving Black people the same vaccine schedule that's given to whites because their immune system is better than ours." Can you please explain what you meant?
There's a series of studies, I think most of them by Poland, that show that to particular antigens that Blacks have a much stronger reaction. There's differences in reaction to different products by different races.
So I have 17 seconds left. Let me just ask you then. So what different vaccine schedule would you say I should have received? What different vaccine schedule should I have received?
I mean, the Poland article suggests that Blacks need fewer antigens than.
This is so dangerous.
So you get the same measles vaccine.
Mr. Kennedy, with all due respect, that is so dangerous. Your voice would be a voice that parents would listen to. That is so dangerous. I will be voting against your nomination because your views are dangerous to our state and to our country.
Yeah, so apparently he knows science real good. So, with that, I guess let's begin with the sort of one of the biggies, and we covered this earlier, and it's hard to figure out because and we're going to talk in a little bit about the larger scope of what it is he's really trying to accomplish. But for the interim, he's issued a very large number of executive orders. We covered them as he was issuing them. We're going to skip immigration, save to say, and I did want to get your take on this. I'm sure you heard about Guantanamo Bay.
Yeah, and he basically was told that wouldn't work. So apparently they are repurposing some Army camp in, I think it's Colorado or Oklahoma or something like that, to take up to 50,000.
I'm surprised he didn't try to. I mean, I know Guantanamo Bay. I think they can hold 60 refugees specifically, and then the rest was for the highest security, so they can't hold a huge number.
Right.
So, okay. Well, we'll see if he.
But when the words come down from the God King, you must obey.
Yeah, and they've been calling him the God King in like Congress, and we're going to get to that. We're going to skip for now immigration. We're going to skip a whole bunch of other stuff, and what we're going to do is deal with the budget and how he's been weaponizing elements of it. This is actually what he got impeached for the first time, was holding up funds for Ukraine that Congress had already allocated. Now, Congress has the sole ability to they have the purse. They have sole ability to set budget. And he's not permitted to say that, well, if you're a sanctuary state, we're not going to give you funding for your roads or whatever. He's not allowed to do that. And that's been litigated in court before. I think Nixon ended up trying that. A few other presidents have tried that. And the general consensus is if you gave the president the ability to do something like that or something like the line item veto, what ends up happening is that it's no different than them actually making the policies themselves. They become the lawmakers because they can just, any laws that they don't like, completely defund, and any laws that they do like, throw all the money out.
Congress becomes an honorary position, has no actual function.
Exactly. So this is why he was impeached the first time. Mitch McConnell shielded him, and we're all paying a very high price at this point. So he issued an executive order freezing all federal grants and federal loans across the board, no exceptions, except for, I think, to Israel and Egypt. Now, that is a stunning abuse of power. It is very illegal. He does not have the power to do that. He issued... actually, he didn't issue it. Was the Office of, oh dear Lord, now I'm going to have to go look this up. It was the Office of Federal Personnel Management, I think. Acting Director of the U.S. Office of Personnel Management said that. Nope, sorry. That's a different one that we're going to have to get into. It was the budget. It was the Office of the Budget said that they would have to freeze all hiring. They made the offer of 7 or 8 months. It was pay if you retire right away, and they said that they are halting all loans and grants coming out of the federal government. That was a memoranda sent by the budget office. It was made crystal clear by a number of lawyers and many members of Congress that this was illegal. So Trump rescinded the memoranda. Again, Trump rescinded the memoranda, not the executive order. It's the executive, yeah. So people are saying, hey, the money's flowing again. No, because the executive order is still in place. Now it's an illegal executive order. A stay, the a number of organizations have sued for an emergency stay while this gets heard. It will almost certainly get thrown out. But the problem is nobody knows who's got the authority here right now. Do they do what Congress is saying, which is we've made these laws, you have to follow through and keep doing your jobs, or stop. Now, a number of agencies that now are not getting funding, Medicare and Medicaid, either no or very little funding. This includes, let's see, WIC, which covers baby food for infants. It covers school lunch programs and Meals on Wheels. None of these programs right now, they're all in a state of disarray and not functioning. Apparently, Meals on Wheels doesn't know, do they deliver the food or not? So you have elderly people who are not getting their food. It also, let's see, women's shelters. It affects all medical and scientific research done by the United States. We usually give out grants to have other companies do it. That's the NIH gives out grants to have research companies, research. I feel like research company is not but research institutes, that was the word I was looking for. The money to do research on things like COVID, common cold, flu, Ebola. All of the research done on this is now currently frozen. I was going to say presumably illegally. No, it's illegally. We know for a fact it's illegally. This has already been heard of in the courts. And I assume that includes scientific research into things that even Republicans like weapons research and stuff like that. Any thoughts on this so far, Commander?
I think this is a period, what they're trying to do is sow as much chaos and confusion as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So that the courts get seized up and can't do anything because they're so overloaded with all the complaints and suits and such that are going to follow. And that means that he kind of gets to rule by executive order. There's nothing Congress does goes through because he's the God King. The courts can't, say, no, you can't do that because they're busy with all the other crap that's coming down.
Birthright citizenship is still, that's, yeah. I mean, that was okay, the number of, and because he's got control. So one of his strategies has always been throughout his entire life before he was president, not to pay people. So, he doesn't pay or pays a fraction of what people are owed. And then when he gets sued, delay until it's really no longer worth it. You're spending more money to get what you're owed than actually, so very few people actually, but I think at one point he had 2,000 lawsuits against him. Yeah. And they don't get cleared up because he just keeps filing these motions and these delay tactics until people give up. So he ends up being bulletproof, and he uses his own money to do this. But now he's got the money of the Justice Department, and he can use the Justice Department to defend his policies in court. Would it be the Justice Department? I don't think it would be the White House counsel.
It's the AG.
Attorney General. So, so now it's going to be that. It looks like, I think you've got a very good point. It looks like it's going to be that same strategy. Delay.
It's worked for the rest of his life, so why not make it try it here, and it'll probably work as well.
Do you think he cares about any of the policies that he's signed into law?
Nope.
I should say the executive orders that he hasn't signed. Anyways.
He's to some extent catering to his secret behind-the-scenes brokers because all of this stuff really benefits them. I'm not talking about the average rank and file MAGA in Podunk, Idaho, or wherever. I'm talking about the big bucks people that want him in power so he can remove all taxes, all reins on their power so they can do whatever they want. And that's the group he's catering to.
One of the groups that lost its funding, and I've forgotten its name, so I'll have to look it up here. Let's see. Oh, I put it on. I must have put it on the other page. I've forgotten the name of it. It was a organization started by George Bush Sr., and the idea was to eradicate AIDS. Now, it has obviously failed to do so, but it has been one of the most successful public health programs in human history, nonetheless. It has saved, I think it was 53 million lives, and gives retrovirals out for free to countries and the regions that most need it. Now, the retrovirals you have to take at pretty much within an hour of the same time every day. You have to have a very constant amount in your bloodstream, and missing 1 or 2 doses can be lethal. And as of this moment, every one of the distributions...
It's even more absurd than what you're saying.
Yeah.
Even if they have the stuff on hand, they have stocks of the stuff on hand, they're not allowed to dispense it.
So
They
even...
have-
Even places that have gotten that aid from the U.S., they have it. It's been paid for. It's in the dispensary. They can't open up the dispensary and give it out to people.
Right.
Okay. So, and this was started by Bush. The thing I almost hate conservatives
This
for
is
the most.
enthroning cruelty as a national policy.
Yeah. It's and what's it called? Robert's fence? Is it Robert's fence? Is it the notion that it's an idea that you don't dismantle anything if you don't understand why it was put up there in the first place? Because if somebody took the time and effort to make one of these programs, usually there was a reason. That reason may no longer apply. There's lots of inefficiency, but just stopping everything, the number of people that, between the elderly, between the women's shelters, by the way, closed. Any women's shelter that's getting federal funding is now closed. So it's this idea, I get it. It feels like
Pure abusive husbands.
Yeah. The idea that, stop everything and then restart and add programs life doesn't work that way. Everybody else has to keep living whether you're paying them or not. So it's an absolutely insane thing that's happening right now. And the damage to Medicare and Medicaid, the Veterans Suicide Hotline, which is a national hotline, is down. A lot of people have been saying that Medicaid access portals are all down. All this stuff is down. So it's an extraordinary, and the amount of people who are going to die from either the elderly, people who have AIDS, who are on this program and from the lack of research. I mean, at some point we're going to start the research up again, so it's not, but it's, I think cruelty is the perfect word. It's absolutely insane.
Where have we heard of a government that did this kind of thing before, where people who were non-productive were to be eliminated simply because it was cost efficient?
I want to say
Europe in the 1930s,
was it Palau?
40s. God, it's on the tip of my tongue.
Well, and they did other things. So, for example, before they're allowed to start adding programs back, a political officer has to be put into every bureau, and it's a political appointee. Their job is to make sure.
Oh, the commissar.
Yeah, their job is to make sure that there's no woke or leftist propaganda or all this other stuff in these programs as they come back. So you're going to have a political appointee making sure that the science, the research, that the needs are filtered through the political eye of that president, because he has got somebody there supervising it to say, no, the data doesn't say this, it says this, because this is what we're telling you it says. It's really scary. And none of these agencies are supposed to get any of their funding back until they get one of these political officers. They don't have a name. It was just a political oversight. There's going to be an officer assigned to each bureau, and I think inside the bureaus, the various divisions are each going to get an officer. So
You've got to create, well-paying federal jobs for all those January 6th convicts that got released. So.
what was the other? There was something else that just happened with the January 6th convicts. Yeah, they're going to get you, put them in a nice brown shirt and have them enforce all of these regulations. So speaking of
You gotta have jackets. Doesn't work without jackets.
Doesn't work without. Oh yeah, no, it does. It absolutely no. So yesterday, a memorandum.
Let me interrupt for a sec. There is one aspect that we haven't talked about, and that's using misinformation to create fear. So the whole thing that came down with OPM, Office of Personnel Management, where an email was sent out to basically all federal employees saying, you can take early retirement now, and we will continue to pay you up through September. Or if you don't take early retirement, there's a better than 50-50 chance you're going to be fired and get nothing.
Yeah.
Now, knowing what I do about the way the federal personnel management system works, they can't do that. But it's sending out information to scare people into what they want them to do.
And it probably doesn't hurt their agenda when it gets released that every member of the Justice Department that was involved in any prosecution at all of Donald Trump at any level has been fired.
Yeah.
Just for doing their jobs and going where the evidence.
If you made copies of something, you're fired.
Yes. Yep. Anybody involved at all. Secretary, anybody. Gone from the Department of Justice. And that's part of the Schedule F, making everyone an at-will employee so that he can fire. And Zandering always says this, and it's an interesting, never give yourself a power you wouldn't want your worst enemy to have. It's like he has to, at this point, find a way to never let the Democrats back into office, because if the Democrats get back into office and say, hey, you know what, we're just going to defund every conservative program we don't like, the government cannot function the way they're setting it up.
Well, considering the number of laws that they're breaking with this stuff, they could prosecute all of those people and throw them in prison. So the Republicans are in a pickle because they can't risk letting Democrats get back into power. Yep. Almost all of them are then at risk of going to prison.
Yeah, doing exactly what Trump has been doing. If they've set the precedent, so that makes an even greater sense of urgency, I think, for a third, fourth, and fifth. And I'm sure everybody already knows. I don't think we covered it, but there's already a bill that would ostensibly grant Trump a third term in office. However, it's a constitutional amendment, so it would have to go through the normal, and there's no way they're passing a constitutional amendment to do anything right now. But having said that, it shows you the thought is on their mind, and it was pretty early that happened.
Yeah.
Now, the U.S. Office of Personnel Management issued this memorandum yesterday. So, and we've talked about this, we mentioned this before, their idea of, quote, defending women, which is part of how to dismantle DEI. It's part of overlaps into a number of areas, but the Defending Women from Gender Ideology, Extremism, and Restoring Biological Truth to the Federal Government executive order, which we did cover the night he issued it. The Office of Personnel Management has said that no later than 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Friday, January 31st, an email will have to be sent to all agency employees announcing that the agency will be complying with the Defending Women guidance in this memorandum. Now, this is every agency, every federal agency, not just personnel management. So all of them will get this memo. They will have to review agency programs, contracts, and grants and terminate any that promote or inculcate gender ideology. So it doesn't even need to promote it. It just, if it has a they, them part of the sheet that you can fill out, it's gone. Review all agency positions, descriptions, and send a notification to all employees whose position description involves inculcating or promoting gender ideology that they are being placed on paid administrative leave effective immediately, and the agency takes steps to close and end all initiatives, offices, and programs that inculcate or promote gender ideology. Also, to take down all outward-facing media, this is websites, social media accounts, etc., that inculcate or promote gender ideology. Now, we had a report, I've looked into it, I've been unable to confirm it, but we had a report that the word trans can't actually be used on posts on Facebook anymore. I'm a little suspicious that Facebook would capitulate that quickly to that, so I don't know, but I've looked and I haven't been able to confirm that. But expect that kind of thing to happen, because what they're saying here is you cannot have, as any federal employee, at least for the I mean, I would assume they may even mean their private Facebook accounts, but take down all outward-facing media, websites, social media accounts that inculcate or promote gender ideology. So inculcate just means includes. So if you can actually have a they, them on Facebook, you can't use Facebook anymore, at least not at the office. Review agency email systems such as Outlook and turn off features that prompt users for their pronoun. Withdraw any final or pending documents, directives, orders, regulations, material forms, communication statements, and plans that inculcate or promote gender ideology. Cancel any training that inculcate or promote gender ideology or have ever done so in the past. Disband or cancel any employee resource groups or special emphasis programs that include or promote gender ideology or have done so in the past. Review all agency forms that require any entry of an individual's sex and ensure that it lists male and female only and not gender identity. Gender identity. Remove requests for gender and substitute requests for sex. Ensure that all applicable agencies, policies, documents, including forms, use the term sex and not gender. Ensure that all intimate spaces designed for women, girls, or females and for men, boys, or males are designated by biological sex and not gender identity. So that's just what they're going to send in the memo that they're telling everybody. And then no later by 12 p.m. Eastern Standard on February 7th, report to the Office of Personnel Management that all steps have been taken to implement these guidelines, including a complete list of actions taken in response to this guidance and defending women, and any agency plans to fully comply with defending women. So that will effectively remove at all levels any recognition of the distinction between gender and sex, which was one of the first things I learned in Psych 101, but okay. And that was 30 years ago. Any thoughts?
It's one of those wonderful hot button topics that will keep his base in line.
Yeah, well, and I think, and they're talking about, I think this is why.
It literally has no effect whatsoever on how these various government agencies perform their actual functions. All it is the bone being thrown to the wolves.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's a cultural change. It's not it doesn't change how they perform, ostensibly, or how they perform their duties. It's not a change. It's not an ordered change to their duties. That's a good point. Well, and that's the whole problem, which is all of this is he has politicized the entire executive branch, a great deal of which is not supposed to be politicized, including the Justice Department, including 90% of federal employees, and all of them are now at will, and all of them and that is the other proposal. So he has now added that any future employees, once they begin hiring, has to take a loyalty test. Sir, would you like to guess to whom or to what office that test, the loyalty is ordered? And I use that, but it is one or the other.
Again, there's a country that did this in the past.
Yeah, there was.
Man, it's so elusive. It's right there.
When was it that I'm sure you may have the date. When was it that Germany changed the army loyalty oath from the chancellor to Adolf Hitler specifically?
I'm guessing 32, but it could be as late as 36, but it's definitely already in place by 36.
Okay. So, I mean, this is that's one, the loyalty oath to Trump. It's not to the office of the president.
Well, so they're doing the confirmation hearings, and somebody wanted to point out to whoever the guy they were interviewing, or whatever you want to call it, doing the performance hour with it, and the person who was asking the question said, "You do realize that you swear your oath to the Constitution of the United States, not to Donald Trump." Yeah, and there was kind of a shocked expression that this would even be mentioned, because clearly the only thing that matters is loyalty to the orange one.
Well, that's why that famous painting of Washington handing over power. It's like his army was loyal to him, but he was like, no, yeah, if he wanted to be king, he could have been king, but said no.
There were plenty that asked him to. They said, "Will you accept the kingship?"
Yeah. So,
I think his answer was something along the lines of, "We just fought a 8-year war to eliminate kings. Why in the world would be the first thing that we do is appoint a new king to rule?"
Oh, well, yeah, Trump's definitely got that in mind, and I think we'll get into that in a minute. But the loyalty oaths, that to me is one of the more terrifying things, because it's one of the insidious ones that gets in there, and it's like the whole point is you're loyal to the Constitution and to the office, not to the. And it was, I think that was a distinct. In fact, that was Klaus von Strassenberg was, for those who don't know, led the Valkyrie attempt on Hitler's life. So close. But he used he wasn't as I think, and you'd know better than I do. I don't think he was as anti-Hitler as people like to think, but he hated what the war was doing to Germany. He hated the fact that he had to swear an oath to Hitler and not to, the Chancellor of Germany and to Germany itself. I think those were among his main objections. Do I have that correct?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest issues is that once it became apparent, which would be by fall of 43, that Germany was not going to win, that they were actively in the process of losing the war, and that the horrors that were being forced on the German people by strategic bombing, the bloody wars on two fronts, all of that. He wanted, I think, something along the lines of a negotiated settlement, even if it meant returning to the German borders antebellum. But, that wasn't going to happen. So, realistically, the only possible way to achieve an end to the war was to eliminate Hitler and the Nazis being in power, because their entire ethos was bound up in the fact that they were at war.
And the fact that they were inherently superior, which I think we're going to come back to a little later, later in this stream. Today, a new memoranda came out, and let me see if okay, I do need to. So this came out from the U.S. Department of Transportation. Now, it looks actually rather reasonable at first. It says that the Department of Transportation, the Office of the Secretary, is ordering the Department of Transportation to follow economic needs when deciding what roads take priority in terms of paving or building new roads. So if we're building new roads, don't just build new roads for the sake of doing it. Take the economic opportunities available and what would get out of those roads. And when repairing old ones, the economic need should come first. A few issues with that already. It seems reasonable, but, what's the economic value in repairing roads in Hawaii when it's burned down? Or in whose economic interests is it in? If it's in the homeowners who aren't going to pay a higher tax rate, or if you don't rebuild the roads, let all the homeowners and everyone leave the land, and then have big, huge hotels come up in that land, make the land much more valuable. Now you can put the roads in. So, yeah, and that goes for Florida and various other places that have been hit with hurricanes. You can now weaponize where you rebuild based on economic data, and if the economic data suddenly shifts, well, you're screwed. But it gets significantly worse than that, because there is a interesting clause. So let's see. Direct funding to local opportunity zones where permitted. And let's see. Require local compliance or cooperation with federal immigration enforcement and with other goals and objectives specified by the United States or the Secretary. So make sure you don't have any illegal immigrants working, or undocumented workers or anything like that. Okay, no big surprise there. To the extent practical, relevant, appropriate, and consistent with law, mitigate the unique impacts of DOT programs, policies, and activities on families and family-specific difficulties. So prioritize families. such as the accessibility of transportation to families with young children, and give preference communities with marriage and birth rates higher than the national average. So if you live in a community where the marriage rates are lower, the policy now of the Department of Transportation is your roads are not prioritized and nobody.
Well, if you live in a retirement community,
Yeah.
they don't have kids, so
Yeah. And the idea that it's not just birth rates, marriage was included. So marriage rates is now a factor in building roads. So a happy family that's unmarried.
authoritarians and fascists love to use that. Woman's place in the home, barefoot, pregnant.
Yeah, that's shocking. That was, let's see, number 3 on the punch list. Number 4, prohibit recipients of DOT support or assistance from imposing vaccine and mask mandates. Anyone who gets DOT support or assistance. I'm curious, does a public road count as DOT support or assistance?
The money spent for maintenance on said road would be.
Okay.
And
So
you have to understand the wording there is critical. Because it's a way to circumvent states' rights. So if a state like, say, California or Washington or Massachusetts decides that they need X road potholes filled and they're using DOT money and they're still adhering to state mandates that certain things have to be in their contracting and such, then DOT can cut funding.
So the DOT basically does not have to fund or support states which have, at this point right now, they're talking about mask mandates and vaccine mandates. So this would include, presumably, measles, mumps, rubella vaccine, if they want to eliminate that now, if that is, and it's funny because they said earlier, they're like, we don't want to tell states that they can't require these vaccines. We just want states to be able to remove those requirements if they choose to. But this basically says, yeah, except if you keep those requirements, you will not get federal assistance for roads anymore. Your interstate highway, your whatever.
It's not going to be just roads. It's going to be something from the Department of Education. It will be things from the Forestry Service, what have you. It all comes down to they're all going to enact similar policies, which means your state doesn't get any federal funds if you don't do exactly what the federal government tells you to do.
All right. So this is the lunacy as of 8:50 p.m. January 30th. I can't tell you what's going to happen at 8:51. I just can't. I'm not even going to guess. We do keep documents. The Onion. What was it? Their amicus brief. A few other things. We need to expand that archive. Bring it in from the website. But at any rate. I don't see a need since the White House is currently keeping all of these up, and I don't think the point of each and every one of these, or that each and every one of these and what they say is necessarily the point. So, what is the point? What on earth is this lunatic doing?
Basically dismantling government so that he can build a new version that suits his preferences and needs, or rather suits his backers' preferences and needs.
So, in dismantling government, how does this achieve that?
Because going to what you were saying, let's use that DOT thing. If they can cut off funding to states to be able to maintain their roads, then state road systems go down. What then happens? Businesses will be less inclined to locate in blue states, which are having that occur, and more likely to shift to red states, because they have better roads. And you do that with all these other functions. They have better parks, they have better schools, all because that's where the federal money's going. Understand, it doesn't eliminate the requirement for blue states to continue to pay into federal coffers. Just means you're not getting 1 penny of your money back unless you kowtow to our dictates.
I think the average state pays about 30% of income on the state, or 30% of taxes go to the federal government, and the rest to the local government, if I recall. So the courts, and you and I have spoken about this, but I'd
the
like to
flip
ask.
side of that has to also be mentioned,
Yep.
is if states aren't receiving that money and they want to maintain programs, it means that they need to strip that money out of their budget for other things, which, it's a cascading problem. As things get worse, they will continue to get even worse than they were yesterday, and they will just spiral out of control.
Well, a vicious. Too many people use the word vicious cycle or vicious circle, and I have no idea what it means. It's self-feeding that actually escalates as it. Yeah.
I think that's exactly what he's looking to try to do. He probably tried it in his first term, but got stymied at every attempt. So he basically has turned to the Heritage Foundation, who, I hate to say it, but have some clever minds behind them. And they figured out how to circumvent actual constitutional law to achieve their ends.
The entire taking down of Roe v. Wade was based on the principle that it should be a state's right, and now he's taking all the states' rights that established and saying, no, they're not states' rights, but he can't legally do that, so they're finding these, we're not going to fund you, we're going to take away other things. It is that strong. It's, when he called up Ukraine and said, oh yeah, our Congress has given you money, but I'm only giving it to you if you're going to investigate Hunter Biden, do this, or actually, I think he said you have to say he's guilty, and if you do that, then I'll give you the money to which you're actually entitled. So it's this very mafia strong arm tactics kind of. So how much? I mean, right now, a lot of this is being litigated through the courts. How much success do you think that's going to have, both on that sort of smaller issue, and secondly, on his attempt to basically bring down the federal government as we know it?
Again, if you keep throwing all this garbage out there and everybody's filing suit to stop ruling X, Y, or Z, the court system gets clogged up. It's already tediously slow. This is going to make it grind to a complete freaking halt. So that third pillar of the American triad is removed. Now, it was executive, legislative, judicial. Well, if you can strip the judicial side away and then doctor how we conduct elections to ensure that that other one goes away, all the power rests in the executive. And I think that's what is actually going on right now. That's what the long-term goal is. The short-term goal is probably a lot simpler. It's prima facie, we're just doing away with gender issues. Yeah, that's what you say now, but that's the first step in the next portion of what's going to happen across the spectrum.
Where nobody wants to put Jews into gas chambers. We just want them to wear a sign, just wear the Star of David so that you know that you're
They
dealing
can
with.
migrate to Madagascar, or we'll put them on ships in whatever friendly country wants to accept them, that's fine. And if nobody does, they can come back here and we'll put them in temporary housing.
Yeah.
And then we'll make the problem go away.
When ostensibly nobody's looking. More people knew than, but yeah. Citizens United was a big,
It's
yeah,
hard not
it was.
to know when you had ash falling on your house.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is just since this is a downtime, we go down a few more rabbit holes here. I'd like to point out Auschwitz was made out of brick. Could have been made a lot faster if they hadn't have made it really a permanent building. And at the maximum rate that all of those buildings could operate, they'd have eliminated all the Jews in a reasonably short order. I think it was like 1.4 years or something like that. So then the question is, what were they going to do next? They weren't planning on taking those down.
Well, we know that they tried eliminating people with physical deformities, mentally handicapped, elderly people with terminal conditions. Because again, they aren't productive. And the only reason you exist as a citizen in an autocratic state is either you are a worker and or a consumer who buys the product. You have no other function.
It's just the Department of Transportation. And that is literally we're cutting out the elderly and those who are not married.
Yeah.
And the people who have mask mandates. I can't believe that just gets tossed in there. It's like, we got to add something else.
Going to go down in history as one of the greatest prophets ever.
Sorry, what?
Margaret Atwood is going to go down in history as one of the great prophets.
What did she say?
She's the one who wrote Handmaid's Tale.
Oh, Jesus, that's right. Yeah. All right. So,
Yep.
yeah.
The dystopia is now.
Good news, bad news. Bad news, basically everything you've heard for the last hour.
All opinion.
Good news, it's been tried before. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You don't know. The best disinfectant against this kind of thing is education. That's why we do our show. That's why thank you, Lance, for coming on. I always appreciate it because you understand so much of this far more than I do. So we're gonna increase our schedules. I think it's very important that we stay on this. We also still care very much about what happens in Ukraine. What's happening in Israel is also a very big issue. But especially whereas the U.S., at least right now, is the sole superpower left in the world, this is one of the biggest concerns. And I've seen a number of our audience who say, we don't want to talk about it anymore. We're going to try to keep most downtimes just that. Our last downtime with Sniper, I keep saying that instead of Viper. I really better not say that to his face, because if I ever, dear Lord.
From certain angles, the letter V does look like the letters S and M together.
Viper, he got it. That's it. And between the dyslexia and my mouth just keeps going and doesn't stop, I can't be held accountable for what I say. Are you kidding me? Do you know what my life would be like if I was held accountable for everything I said? I mean, please, Jesus. That was a great hang. That was a really great show, and we're going to have more of them because I also acknowledge that people need a break. It can't just be all, but in time is going to be taking this a lot more seriously going forward. And we already have a news channel. If you come to our Discord, you're going to see that we've been keeping up with the orders and their consequences as best we can. We did miss, and it'll go into the. Yeah, I'm a fan of Legal Eagle. I think he does great videos. The audio was not working for part of the where he went. I think nobody heard him, so I'm gonna play that again in a second. It'll cut into the intro. I'll stop it, but we'll do that in a sec. But come join us on the Discord. Keep up with any of the news topics that you're interested in, whether it's Ukraine, Trump. We also, even we have channels for gaming. Keep up with it, participate, just watch, whatever you want to do. You'll also be notified by when we're having shows there, because YouTube is notorious for not notifying people. But like, subscribe, and if you like the content, share it. It really does help. We do need to keep the lights on. That's becoming increasingly harder for everyone, I'm aware. But so sharing is a great way to help. If you can't super chat or donate, share it, and that's always just a great way to help. So what we're going to do is give. Actually, I could probably just we'll give this a shot and see if I could get this to work.
I am so done with these people, and there are 1,600 more days to go.
See if I can get. Oh, it's not gonna. Yep, this is what happens when you screw with systems that you don't completely understand. See, we'll get everybody's audio back there. There we are. He lost it in his last video. He was just like, and if he was on the verge of screaming, and he said, if you want to know why I sound like this, it's because of what these guys are doing. Oh dear. Sinister Porpoise, $2.56. OpenAI complaining that DeepStack stole its IP, or DeepSeek, stole its IP. Well, not only that, but ChatGPT, I love this. ChatGPT has just been replaced by an AI. Wow. Even AIs are losing their jobs. UTV and Ham, $10, doing what I can. We really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Like I said, I know it's hard for everyone. We really appreciate it. Deep. Oh, information overload.
You want to take bets on how long it's going to be before places like YouTube and such are told that they need to censor critical statements being made about the orange one?
I think it's going to be brought up in passing within 2 months and seriously within 6.
Yep.
Actually, I'm going to shorten that to seriously within 4.
The First Amendment is such trivia. We don't need that.
Well, here's the thing. There is precedent for that. So the precedent is called it's the K1, and it's monkey bars versus sandbox, and their conclusion was first is the worst, last is the best. So this was the kindergarten decision: monkey bars versus sandbox. First is the worst, last is the best. So you can get rid of the First Amendment just on those grounds. But we've all heard it. We know it. So yeah. Oh dear Lord. Well, and I think it was Ronnie in the live chat. Ronnie Varenkin asked how long before he goes for an impeachment. Is there any possibility you think that? I mean, is impeachment even remotely possible if he goes for? I mean, he did get serious blowback from the funding thing. Although to be fair, he only withdrew the memo, not the.
If enough of the actions that he is undertaking put the hurt on his supporters, the MAGA supporters, they will get back to their elected officials, and some of them may shift sides. So you may be able to get an actual impeachment. Will it be enough to remove him from office? No, not a chance.
Wow, he could be impeached a fourth time, and he's not. Yeah. Oh, I guess it was not Ronnie. I'd forgotten who it was. All right. Thank you all for joining us. We will definitely have our regular Tuesday show. We'll probably have either a Monday. I don't know. We're going to have to figure out how often we're going to have to stream. I was sort of spitballing it with Titan, and he pointed out that we could do a show a day on what he's doing, which I'm actually tempted to do so that everybody stays up with it, and I am tempted not to do. Again, I think we should keep our eye. It's important to see the details, but the bigger picture is not each of these orders. So, as we said earlier, Darian Vaughn, $1.99. Love, Commander. Wish I served on your show. So if you would like to serve on his ship, I've known him for quite some time now. If you want to butter him up, and you
have a kayak.
Yeah, if you want to make sure that you're invited into his home and or to his kayak and or any other ship that he helms, there's something called lemon chiffon ice cream. He is a huge fan of. And if you just pick up a gallon tub of lemon
I do this
chiffon.
voluntarily, Nick. I could just, flip you the bird and never show up again.
Okay, I may have gone a little far with the lemon chiffon. I understand that does constitute a war crime. I apologize, or at least crimes against humanity.
That or salmon loaf.
Yeah. So,
Figure any recipe that starts with take 12 boxes of cornflakes, 12 pounds of canned salmon.
oh my God.
You can project just how bad it was.
Wow. Canned salmon and boxes of cornflakes. Oh my God. That sounds like what you feed people when you're just talk, or we're going to give you more salmon.
I got the biggest applause when I went down and tore that recipe card up on the mess sticks.
And what did the I think it was the captain do to the lemon chiffon?
Opened the hatch, threw it over the side, turned to the supply officer, said, "If there isn't a chocolate ice cream in there by tomorrow evening, you're going after the lemon chiffon ice cream."
Okay, so the lemon chiffon may not have been a good idea or in good faith, but again, if I were to be held accountable for everything I said, it was just like I'd be in almost as much trouble with Trump.
To be honest, it tasted almost exactly as if you'd sprayed lemon pledge in your mouth. The furniture polish.
Oh, I know what it is. I'm just a little curious to know how you know what it tastes.
We won't talk about Lance doing chores when he was growing up.
Okay. Well, fair enough. What was buddy of mine? Like, yes, I played pranks. Never anything like this. Buddy of mine took a bottle of Windex, emptied it, rinsed it out, filled it with water, put in some blue dye, and then when his grandmother was coming in, to babysit, he had the Windex, he had it out. She saw it, and he's like, "Why don't you go put that back?" He goes, "Oh yeah, okay." And just just drinks the whole thing right in front of her. She's like, "Oh my God, I gotta call the Oh dear Lord.
That's a good one.
Yeah, some people, wow. And the people who hang out with them even worse, but all right. And if anybody here knows Viper, I've always pronounced his name correctly. We've always been at war with Oceania. I'm just saying. So I've never made that mistake. Have a good night, all. We'll be here for you on Tuesday. We'll be here for you a lot more, and look forward to chatting with you guys on the Discord. Have a good night.